This woman destroyed a 3-year relationship with a man who truly loved her, manipulated everyone around her, and ended up pregnant without knowing who the father was. Her name is Kendra. She's 24 years old, and what she did to the people who cared about her will leave you absolutely speechless. I'm Emma, and this is her story. Kendra thought she had everything figured out. She and Tyler had been together for 3 years, sharing a small apartment that constantly smelled like whatever their downstairs neighbor decided to cook that evening. But inside, Kendra felt like she was slowly dying. Every single day followed the same pattern. Tyler would return from work, collapse onto their worn secondhand couch, and they'd spend hours watching the same streaming shows while eating takeout, because neither had the energy to prepare actual meals. Day after day, week after week, the same exhausting routine. And Kendra sat there night after night, asking herself the same questions. Is this really my entire future? Is this what the rest of my life looks like? But here's where things get complicated. Kendra didn't want to be seen as the villain who suddenly ended a long-term relationship without warning. Because Tyler wasn't just any boyfriend. He was genuinely kind. The type of person who remembered to buy your favorite coffee creamer without being reminded. Someone who actually paid attention when you talked about your day. So Kendra couldn't just tell him the truth. She couldn't say, "I'm bored with our life. I'm leaving." That would make her look terrible. Instead, she decided to make Tyler the problem. She started finding fault with absolutely everything. The sound he made while eating his morning cereal annoyed her. His work clothes left on the bathroom floor became unbearable. Even his breathing while they watched television together drove her crazy. I know what you're thinking. And yes, Kendra admits it sounds completely irrational. But in her mind, she needed legitimate reasons. She needed justification. So she began making calculated comments designed to shake his confidence. Things like, "You've changed so much from the person I originally fell in love with." Or, "Sometimes it feels like we're just two roommates sharing space, not actually partners." These are classic statements that make men panic and desperately try harder to save the relationship. Meanwhile, her social media presence told a completely different story. Her posts still showed them as the perfect couple. People left comments about how adorable they were together, and Kendra would respond with heart emojis while internally rolling her eyes. But privately, she was already exploring other possibilities. You know how it starts. You begin interacting with old high school friends' posts. You check who recently got divorced. You notice who looks attractive now. That's when Jackson Martinez caught her attention. Even his name sounded more exciting than Tyler's, at least in Kendra's mind. He'd been in her chemistry class during senior year. They'd maybe spoken 5 times total, but he'd always had that dangerous appeal. Leather jacket, motorcycle, the whole rebellious image. Kendra noticed his relationship status had recently changed to single, and he'd started posting gym photos that showed 3 years of marriage had treated him very well. So she initiated what she called reconnecting with old friends. Innocent comments on his posts at first. Then she slid into his direct messages with the classic opener, "Hey, how have you been? It's been forever." You know exactly how this goes. Meanwhile, Kendra was carefully preparing Tyler for a major conversation. She strategically chose a Sunday evening because he was always more vulnerable on Sundays, anxious about the upcoming work week. She went into full emotional vulnerability mode. Brought up her father leaving when she was 12. Talked about how she never learned to trust people properly. All that childhood trauma material that's nearly impossible to argue against. She told Tyler she was experiencing panic attacks about their relationship and needed space to work on herself before she could be the partner he truly deserved. Tyler's face completely crumpled. He asked if they were breaking up, and Kendra responded with calculated precision. "No, baby, this isn't a breakup. It's temporary. I need to heal myself so I can love you the way you deserve." The manipulation was absolutely perfect because what could Tyler possibly say to that? "No, don't work on yourself?" He'd sound selfish and uncaring. Tyler tried suggesting couples therapy instead, but Kendra immediately shut that down. She insisted she needed to fix herself individually before they could work on the relationship together. Complete nonsense, but it sounded mature and psychologically healthy. Tyler finally agreed to a trial separation with Kendra temporarily moving back to her parents' house. But the entire time, Kendra was establishing impossible rules. Just because they were separated didn't mean Tyler could date anyone else. They were still committed, just working on themselves separately. However, he also needed to give her space and not be clingy by texting constantly. But at the same time, he absolutely had to text her every single day because otherwise, how would she know he still cared? Yes, Kendra acknowledges how contradictory that sounds now. But at the time, it made perfect sense to her. When Kendra packed her belongings, she made sure to photograph herself crying, so she could post the images later with inspirational quotes about personal growth and healing journeys. Tyler helped carry boxes to her car and kept asking if she was absolutely certain about this decision. Kendra almost felt guilty seeing how devastated he looked. But then she remembered Jackson's latest social media post and felt excited about her new adventure. Her parents were confused about why she was moving back home when Tyler seemed like such a wonderful person, but Kendra fed them the same mental health explanation. She said she was going through something difficult and needed their support. Her mother prepared the guest room and kept asking if she and Tyler were really okay. Kendra assured her it was temporary, just some relationship growing pains. That first night back in her childhood bedroom, Kendra texted Jackson until 2 a.m. Just catching up, she told herself. Totally innocent, but she was already planning when they could meet face to face. Tyler texted her goodnight like he always did, and Kendra sent back a heart emoji while simultaneously laughing at something Jackson had written. The separation was supposedly about healing and self-discovery. But honestly, Kendra felt more alive than she had in months. Within just 3 days of moving back home, Kendra was arranging to meet Jackson in person. The excitement of sneaking around made everything feel electric in a way Tyler never did. Their first meeting happened in a gas station parking lot halfway between their towns. Jackson kept complimenting her appearance, saying he'd always thought she was attractive back in high school. Probably complete lies, but it felt incredible after 3 years of Tyler seeing her in sweatpants. Kendra created elaborate cover stories for her parents and Tyler, fake job interviews, made-up therapy appointments, fictional meetings with old girlfriends. Her mother would ask how therapy was progressing, and Kendra would invent breakthrough moments while she was actually at Jackson's apartment learning things she definitely wasn't learning in any therapy session. The guilt existed at first, but Kendra pushed it away by rewriting their entire relationship history. Tyler had been controlling, boring. He'd taken her for granted. Jackson made her feel special and desired. It's remarkable how quickly you can convince yourself your relationship was terrible when you need to justify your actions. But Kendra kept Tyler emotionally invested. Sweet text messages about missing him. Selfies where she looked sad and thoughtful, usually sent immediately after being with Jackson. The contrast was absolutely insane. Glowing from attention and excitement, then instantly switching to wounded and vulnerable for Tyler's benefit. Kendra's sister started suspecting something wasn't right. She'd notice Kendra getting dressed up for supposed therapy appointments and make comments about how remarkably good her mental health journey seemed to be making her look. Kendra mentally labeled her sister jealous for questioning her story. The social media posts reached peak manipulation, quotes about self-discovery, sunset photographs with healing journey captions. People would comment with encouragement and support, while Kendra planned her next secret meeting with Jackson. Tyler kept asking when she'd be ready to move back in together, and Kendra kept moving the timeline. 2 weeks became a month. A month became 2 months. Each time Tyler looked disappointed but said he understood. His patience was extraordinary. So extraordinary it almost made Kendra angry. Jackson was the complete opposite. Intense and demanding. He made Kendra feel like if she wasn't available when he wanted to see her, he'd simply find someone else. That danger kept her hooked and coming back. The physical chemistry was incredibly intense. All that sneaking around made everything more passionate than anything she'd experienced with Tyler. Kendra started staying overnight at Jackson's place, telling her parents she was having therapeutic sleepovers with girlfriends who were helping her through her rough emotional patch. Her mother would pack care packages, genuinely believing Kendra was having supportive girl time. The irony was absolutely unreal. The longer this continued, the more confident Kendra became that she'd discovered her perfect exit strategy. Tyler was her safety net. Jackson was her exciting future. She just needed to figure out the right timing to make the transition without looking like the villain. What Kendra didn't anticipate was what happened next. Kendra discovered she was pregnant on a Tuesday morning, violently sick while her mother knocked on the bathroom door asking if she had food poisoning. 3 pregnancy tests later, she was having a complete breakdown on her bedroom floor. The timing made everything devastatingly complicated because she'd been physically intimate with both Tyler and Jackson during the same few weeks. Tyler and she had been together during one of their relationship check-in visits where she'd played the loving girlfriend who missed her man. And Jackson and she had been very busy together as well. So Kendra genuinely had no idea whose baby this was. Her first reaction was pure panic, immediately followed by rage. How dare this happen right when she was finally getting her life organized exactly how she wanted it? She was furious at both of them for putting her in this impossible position. Which sounds completely irrational, but that's honestly how she felt. Like they'd both somehow failed her. The worst realization was that her perfect victim narrative was about to completely collapse. It's difficult to claim you're taking time to heal yourself when you've obviously been doing very non-healing activities with someone who isn't your boyfriend. Kendra drove to Jackson's place that same day to tell him, thinking maybe this would push them towards something more serious. Maybe the universe was telling them they were meant to be together. She found him working on his motorcycle in his garage, looking attractive and focused. For a moment, she got distracted, imagining this could be their future life together. But when she told him about the pregnancy, his face turned completely white. Not the good kind of shocked, the absolutely terrified kind. He immediately started asking if she was certain, if it could be someone else's baby, if she'd considered taking care of it. The romantic fantasy Kendra had built up in her head shattered instantly. Then Jackson dropped the real bombshell. He'd been talking to his ex-wife about reconciling for their child's sake. Apparently, their divorce wasn't as final as his social media status suggested. Kendra was just his midlife crisis rebound, not his new beginning. Kendra completely lost control, started screaming at him about leading her on, about destroying her relationship with Tyler for nothing, about how he was exactly like every other man who uses women and throws them away. He told her to calm down, that they'd figure something out, but she could see in his eyes that he wanted absolutely nothing to do with her anymore. Driving home, Kendra kept trying to call Jackson, but he wasn't answering. By that night, he'd blocked her number. The next morning, she discovered he'd blocked her on all social media platforms, too. Just like that, her escape plan evaporated completely. She was left holding the biggest secret of her life with nowhere to turn. The reality started sinking in that she'd have to tell Tyler everything, not just about the pregnancy, but about the entire lie she'd been living for months. And unlike Jackson, Tyler couldn't just block her and pretend she didn't exist. They had 3 years of history, shared friends, shared responsibilities. This was going to destroy everything. But first, Kendra had to figure out how to present this story so she didn't emerge looking like the villain. Kendra spent 3 days meticulously planning exactly how to tell Tyler about the pregnancy. And she's not proud of the manipulation that went into that planning. She chose his birthday weekend because she knew he'd be in a positive mood, and they were supposed to meet anyway to discuss their separation progress. She met him at their old coffee spot downtown, the place where they'd had their very first date. Strategic choice. Lots of positive memories there. Public location, so he couldn't make a scene. Neutral territory. Kendra showed up looking appropriately distressed, like she'd been crying and hadn't slept, which wasn't difficult to fake since she actually hadn't slept in days. She started with the vulnerability approach. Told him how much she'd missed him, how the separation had shown her how much he meant to her, how she'd made some mistakes while trying to figure herself out. She was building up to the major revelation slowly, trying to frame it as a moment of weakness rather than months of calculated deception. "I need to tell you something, and it's going to be hard to hear," she said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "I was confused and hurting, and I made a mistake with someone from my past. It only happened once, and I immediately regretted it." Tyler just stared at her, didn't pull his hand away, didn't interrupt, just waited for her to continue. His calmness was absolutely terrifying. "I'm pregnant," Kendra said, then quickly added, "and I don't know what to do." The silence stretched forever. Tyler's facial expression didn't change at all, which frightened Kendra more than if he'd started yelling. Finally, he asked, "How far along?" When Kendra told him, she watched him calculate the timeline in his head. They'd been intimate during her last visit 3 weeks earlier, so the timing could technically work for either scenario. But she could see in his eyes that he knew the truth. He'd always been perceptive about details. "Who is he?" Tyler asked, still in that same eerily calm voice. Kendra gave him the sanitized version. An old friend from high school, someone she'd reconnected with online. A moment of weakness when she was feeling lost and confused about their relationship. She made it sound like a one-time mistake instead of the ongoing affair it actually was. That's when Tyler started asking the questions Kendra was absolutely dreading. How long had she been talking to this person? Was this why she wanted the separation? Had she planned this entire thing? Each question was like a knife cutting through her carefully constructed story, because he was putting together the puzzle pieces she'd tried so desperately to scatter. Kendra got defensive, turned it back on him. "I'm going through something traumatic here, and you're interrogating me like I'm some kind of criminal. I thought you'd be more supportive." Classic manipulation move. Make him feel guilty for having completely reasonable reactions to being betrayed. But Tyler wasn't accepting it this time. He kept asking questions, and Kendra's story kept falling apart under scrutiny. Why hadn't she mentioned reconnecting with old friends before? Why were her therapy appointments always in the next town over? When exactly did this supposed one-time mistake happen? Kendra started getting angry that he wasn't just accepting her explanation and moving forward. "Look, we were separated," she argued. "Technically, we weren't even together when this happened. I was trying to figure out my feelings, and I made a mistake. But I'm here now, telling you the truth, trying to work things out." "Were we separated or were you cheating?" Tyler asked. That question hit completely different. Because yes, Kendra had been very careful to call it a separation, not a breakup. Specifically so she could keep Tyler as backup while she explored other options. The conversation deteriorated rapidly. Kendra tried bringing up Tyler's past mistakes, times when he'd hurt her feelings or disappointed her, attempting to create some kind of moral equivalency. But he just sat there listening, not taking the bait, not getting emotional enough for her to play the victim. Finally, Tyler said, "I need some time to think about this." And he left. Just walked out of the coffee shop while Kendra sat there with her half-finished latte, pregnant and alone, realizing her manipulation tactics had completely backfired. That night, he texted her that he was staying with his cousin for a while. No anger, no drama, just a simple statement of fact. Somehow that felt worse than if he'd called her terrible names or threatened to leave forever. It felt final. The next few weeks were pure desperation. Kendra knew she was losing control of everything, so she launched into full damage control, trying to manage the situation from every possible angle. First, she called Tyler's mother. She knew his mom had always liked her, and she figured if she could get his family on her side, they'd pressure Tyler to work things out. She played up the pregnancy hormones angle. Told his mother she was scared and confused and just needed Tyler's support during this difficult time. Made it sound like they'd had a small argument that got blown completely out of proportion. Tyler's mother was sympathetic, but also asked pointed questions about the separation and why Tyler seemed so hurt. Kendra gave her the same sanitized version. Moment of weakness. Old friend. Immediate regret. Just needed forgiveness and a chance to make things right. Then Kendra started working social media, posted about the struggles of unexpected pregnancy, the challenges of relationships, vague quotes about forgiveness and second chances. She was fishing for public support, hoping people would see her as the vulnerable pregnant woman who needed compassion, not the cheating girlfriend who destroyed her own relationship. But she couldn't let go of Jackson either. Even though he'd blocked her everywhere, she knew where he worked. Kendra showed up at Jackson's job site during lunch break, thinking maybe if she could talk to him face-to-face, remind him of their connection, he'd step up and they could figure things out together. That was an absolute disaster. Jackson was mortified that she'd shown up at his workplace. He pulled her aside and told her in absolutely no uncertain terms that he wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. Said he was working things out with his ex-wife and she needed to move on. When Kendra started crying and making a scene, his co-workers started staring. Security ended up escorting her off the property. The humiliation was crushing, but it also made her more determined to get Tyler back. If Jackson wasn't going to be her happy ending, then Tyler had to be. She couldn't end up alone and pregnant with nothing to show for completely destroying her life. Kendra started leaving Tyler voicemails. Long, rambling messages about how sorry she was, how she'd learned from her mistakes, how they could raise this baby together, regardless of who the biological father was. She told him she'd do absolutely anything to make it right. Go to counseling, move wherever he wanted, whatever it took. But she also started making subtle threats. If he abandoned her during this pregnancy, what would people think? His family, their friends, everyone who knew them, would see him as the man who walked out on his pregnant girlfriend. She reminded him that his own father had left his mother when she was pregnant with Tyler's little sister, and how much that had hurt their entire family. The threats backfired spectacularly when Tyler's cousin played one of Kendra's voicemails for their family group chat. Everyone heard her going from sweet and apologetic to manipulative and threatening in the same message. Tyler's sister texted Kendra directly telling her to stop harassing her brother and get professional help. Kendra's own family started getting exhausted by her drama too. Her parents had been supportive initially, but as the story kept changing and they started putting pieces together, they became increasingly frustrated. Her mother asked her directly if she'd been cheating on Tyler. When Kendra gave her the same moment of weakness explanation, her mother just shook her head and said she was disappointed in her. Kendra's sister was even more blunt. She told Kendra she'd made her bed and now she had to lie in it. That Tyler deserved better than what she'd put him through. Said Kendra needed to stop trying to manipulate everyone and start taking responsibility for her choices. But Kendra couldn't accept that this was all her fault. In her mind, Tyler was being stubborn and unforgiving. Jackson was a coward who led her on. Her family wasn't being supportive when she needed them most. Everyone was failing her when she was going through the hardest time of her life. She became obsessed with controlling the narrative, making sure everyone knew she was the victim here. Posted more about the challenges of being pregnant and alone, about learning who your real friends are during difficult times. But the sympathy wasn't coming like she expected. People were starting to see through the manipulation. The final straw came when Kendra found out through mutual friends that Tyler was doing remarkably well. He'd started going to therapy, working out regularly, advancing at his job. People said he seemed lighter, happier, more confident. He wasn't moping around or begging her to come back like she'd expected. He was actually thriving without her. That's when Kendra realized she might have lost him forever. And the panic set in completely. The next few months were like watching her entire life crumble in slow motion. And the worst part was seeing Tyler not just survive without her, but actually flourish. Through mutual friends and social media, Kendra got glimpses of his new life, and it was everything she'd told herself he wasn't capable of. He'd apparently been going to therapy twice a week, working through what he called relationship trauma. That stung because obviously she was the trauma he was recovering from. He joined a gym and was posting progress pictures showing he was getting incredibly fit. He got promoted at work and was talking about possibly going back to school. Everything about him looked different, confident, happy, purposeful. Then came the real knife to the heart. About 4 months after their breakup, Kendra saw through a friend's social media story that Tyler was dating someone new. Her name was Sarah, and she was everything Kendra had always made fun of other women for being. Basic job, basic style, basic interests. The kind of person who posts pictures of her coffee and thinks that's actual content. But Tyler looked genuinely happy with her in a way Kendra had never seen him look during their entire relationship. Not that desperate, trying too hard happiness of someone overcompensating, but actual joy. They were doing normal couple things. Hiking, trying new restaurants, going to farmers markets. All the activities Kendra used to complain were boring when Tyler suggested they do them together. Kendra became obsessed with stalking their relationship online. Sarah's social media was public, and she'd spend hours analyzing every post, every comment Tyler left, every picture of them together. They looked so easy and comfortable with each other. No drama, no games, no manipulation. Just two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Meanwhile, Kendra's life was falling apart in every possible way. The stress of single pregnancy was brutal, but she couldn't afford to reduce her hours at work. Bills were piling up without Tyler's income, and she'd had to move into a tiny one-bedroom apartment in a questionable part of town. Her professional reputation took a hit after the incident at Jackson's workplace. Word got around about the unstable pregnant woman who'd caused a scene, and it made its way back to people in her industry. She ended up having to take a lower-paying position at a smaller company where nobody knew her history. The isolation was the worst part, though. Her parents were still in her life, but their relationship was strained. They were disappointed in the choices she'd made and tired of the constant drama she brought to family gatherings. Her sister barely spoke to her anymore, said she couldn't handle Kendra's negativity and victim complex. Most of Kendra's friends had gradually faded away too. Turns out when your entire personality becomes complaining about how unfairly life is treating you, people stop wanting to spend time with you. The few friends who tried to maintain the relationship got exhausted by Kendra's constant need for validation and support without ever giving anything back. She tried dating apps, thinking maybe she could find someone who'd want to step into a ready-made family situation. But being visibly pregnant and bitter about your ex doesn't exactly make you attractive on dating platforms. The few men who did match with her were clearly just looking for easy hookups with someone they assumed was desperate. The pregnancy itself became this constant reminder of how badly she'd destroyed her life. Every doctor's appointment attended alone, every ultrasound picture with no one to share it with, every kick and movement from a baby whose father wanted nothing to do with them. Kendra started resenting the pregnancy itself, seeing it as the reason her perfect plan had fallen apart instead of acknowledging that her own choices had led to this outcome. But the absolute worst moment came when she was about 7 months pregnant and ran into Tyler and Sarah at the grocery store. Kendra looked horrible, hadn't slept well in weeks, wearing stretched-out maternity clothes that made her look even more pregnant and pathetic. They looked like they'd just come from a workout class together, all glowing and healthy and happy. Tyler was polite but distant, asked how she was doing in that careful way people talk to someone they used to know. Sarah was actually kind, congratulating Kendra on the pregnancy and asking when she was due. She seemed genuinely nice, which somehow made it worse than if she'd been terrible and easy to hate. They were buying ingredients for some elaborate dinner they were cooking together, talking about a hiking trip they'd planned for the weekend. Everything about their interaction showed how comfortable and secure they were together. Tyler introduced Sarah to people they ran into, posted pictures of their adventures, clearly wasn't hiding their relationship or treating it as temporary. Standing there in the cereal aisle, visibly pregnant and alone, watching the life Tyler had built without her, Kendra finally understood that he wasn't coming back. This wasn't a phase or a rebound relationship. He'd genuinely moved on and found someone who made him happier than she ever had. The realization hit her that she'd thrown away a good man who loved her for a fantasy that was never real. Tyler had been faithful, supportive, and patient with her moods and manipulation for 3 years. He'd been ready to build a life with her, and she destroyed it chasing excitement and validation from someone who saw her as completely disposable. But even facing the complete destruction of her life, Kendra couldn't fully accept that it was all her fault. She was still angry at Tyler for not fighting harder for their relationship, still bitter that Jackson had led her on, still convinced that if people really cared about her, they would have supported her through her mistakes instead of abandoning her when she needed them most. The baby was born 2 months later, and the paternity test confirmed what Kendra had suspected. Jackson was the father. Not that it mattered since he'd made it crystal clear he wanted no part of their lives. Kendra named the baby Aiden and tried to convince herself that being a single mother was empowering and that she didn't need anyone else. But late at night, feeding Aiden alone in her tiny apartment, she'd scroll through social media and see Tyler and Sarah's life continuing to flourish. They'd moved in together, adopted a dog, were talking about engagement. Tyler looked like a completely different person, confident, settled, genuinely content. Kendra kept waiting for karma to hit them, for their perfect relationship to implode the way hers had. But it never happened. They just kept being happy together while she struggled alone with the consequences of her choices, still unable to fully admit that she'd created every single bit of her own misery. And that's Kendra's story. A cautionary tale about manipulation, deception, and the devastating consequences of treating people like pawns in your own game. Tyler didn't deserve what happened to him. He was a good man who loved Kendra faithfully for 3 years, and she destroyed that relationship chasing a fantasy that was never real. Jackson was exactly what he appeared to be, someone looking for a temporary distraction, not a life partner. And Kendra? She ended up exactly where her choices led her. Alone, struggling, and still unable to take full responsibility for the destruction she caused. The saddest part is that even after losing everything, Kendra still sees herself as the victim of other people's failures rather than the architect of her own downfall. What do you think about Kendra's story? Have you ever known someone who manipulated everyone around them and then couldn't understand why they ended up alone? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you or made you think, please hit that like button. Share this video with friends who might benefit from hearing Kendra's cautionary tale. And make sure to subscribe to Mrs. Emma's channel so you never miss these powerful real-life stories. I'm Emma, and I'll see you in the next story. Remember, the choices we make today create the life we live tomorrow. Choose wisely.